My name is Kay, and I'm the writer, director, producer, and cinematographer of the feature film Black Lake. If you love horror films as much as I love horror films, then make it your film fave.
Artiayane, I got the very desi scarf that you sent me. It's exactly why I've driven so far up north, isn't it?
Oh, come on, Arya. Think about the local villagers who made it. It's handmade, with love. I found the article, the village I was in. The scarf! It was in that photo on a dead girl!
So, thank you everyone for tuning in as FILMFave.com celebrates women in horror for the month of March. And I am happy to announce that I am starting it off with one of my favorite filmmakers. This is Kay. Kay, if you want to go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Jason. It is a pleasure to be here celebrating Women in Horror Month. So my name is Kay. I'm a writer, director, cinematographer. I do a bit of everything. So yeah.
Excellent, cool.
And we met Women in Horror Film Festival last year with my film
at
Black Lake.
Vanessa's here in just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Like we met doing the Women in Horror thing, so it's really nice. It's kind of cosmic how all this is piecing together now.
Absolutely.
So let me go ahead and ask you another question about this. So where did this start for you? What was the beginning of you becoming a filmmaker?
2007. 2007. I was studying literature at uni. So I grew up loving horror. I wrote a lot of horror fiction to the point my parents banned me from reading horror books. They actually went to my school, told my teachers, they said, if you see her reading a horror book, you've got to take it away.
Wow,
then again, I was that 11-year-old. I actually read The Exorcist when I was 11. So yeah. People were reading Goose.
You
Go ahead.
read The Exorcist at 11.
Yeah. People were reading Goosebumps.
Yeah.
People were reading Goosebumps. Have I read it since then? I have.
Okay, so let me ask you a quick side question then. Between reading it then as a child and reading it now as an adult, what was there a difference in your takeaway from it? Did the story impact you differently?
I think I read it maybe as a young teenager, so maybe when I was around 16, 17. I do have a copy. But I think reading it as an 11-year-old was just so exciting. There was just this excitement about it. My parents were very conservative, but there was no censorship on the library, so I could just get out books. So I read Jaws. I read a lot of I read a lot of books when I was younger, and then I'd then make a list of films and be like, when I'm old enough, I can watch these.
Okay.
So when I went to uni, I wanted to study literature so I could continue writing horror fiction. Somehow I ended up taking a module in film, changed my major, which became literature and film, and I made my first short film in 2007, which was an adaptation of an Edgar Allan Poe story.
Oh, which one?
It's Man of the Crowd. It wasn't a horror. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Yeah. It was strange because I just kind of fell into it. We were studying a module on adaptations of texts, and the class was like, "Let's make something." And at the time, we did not have a practical film course at the University of Essex, so we decided to just do our own thing.
Okay.
Which was amazing.
So it was kind of a natural progression from writing to filmmaking for you, yes?
Yeah, I just suddenly felt like I could take my ideas and materialize them, make them happen. So after we did Man of the Crowd, what happened next? When it came to my third year dissertation, I decided to write, direct, and produce my own horror short film, which was Obsidian. And a lot of my horror shorts were just kind of experimental ideas. I was obsessed with death rituals, death culture, across, well, globally. So I used my short films to just experiment with things. I worked full time, I studied full time, got my own gear, and I just kept doing it. I was normally just a one-person team. Sometimes I'd rope people in to do lights, but it was a really exciting time to just see things come alive.
And when was the situation where you came to realize that, okay, I definitely want to be a filmmaker? What was that moment? Was there a moment? Was it a series of events? Where was that?
That wasn't my man.
What was that light bulb that went off above you when you went, this is it, this is what I'm doing?
Okay, so I made a few short films while I was at university, and I was going through a really bad time in my life. And it came to a point where I had to make a decision to walk out of a door. And what made that decision easier for me was knowing that I had a camera at home. And I knew that the moment I stepped out of this door and went to that door, I would pick up my camera and I would never stop filming, because I knew that filmmaking was saving my life. At that particular point, I knew that filmmaking was saving my life. So yes, there was a particular point where I made that decision.
That's pretty powerful. That's amazing. And I think, honestly, from what I've seen, from what you've done, that sort of extreme moment kind of carries through in your filmmaking, because your filmmaking is very raw and passionate. So whatever that moment was that forced you into that, I think you kind of carried the ghost of that with you every time you turn the camera on. I think that's phenomenal.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, no problem. As you're as so that's how things started for you, and that's kind of where you are now. So what have you done most recently?
Okay, so
This is where we get to talk about that awesome Black Lake that you got like all over festival circuit all over the years. So, like, I hope everyone sees
crazy.
It's so good.
Crazy. It's been a year now. So we had the world premiere at Women in Horror Film Festival on January the 28th. So craziness. So Black Lake is still on the circuit. There's some news coming up, which I can't share just yet, but it's exciting. And, you know, when I made the film, it was hard enough. It's a miracle that the film exists, because there were so many setbacks, and it was predominantly self-financed, which was painful, but I really believed in the story. And so, yeah, Black Lake is still on the circuit. People are still enjoying it. I think what's taken me by surprise is the amount of people that have messaged me privately about it and how it's really impacted them, how they really connect with it. It's a really interesting film because you can just kind of watch it, really enjoy the visuals and the soundtrack, and then you can kind of go deeper. There are people that really resonate with the story, and it will kind of really touch them, and those are the people that will most likely reach out to me. And then you've got your kind of cinephiles who will be like, oh, that's a reference to this, and what's going on there. So there's a lot there. I'm a Jungian. I'm heavily into my dream psychology. I love my mythology. So there's so much to unpack there. One of my lights have just gone out. Sorry.
Now things are getting spooky.
That's very typical, by the way. I start talking about spooky things and horror and electricity.
So it's kind of like you were tailor made to get into. You're basically you have to be a woman in horror. You really have no option. Like the universe is pushing you in this direction.
There's nobody else here, by the way, Jason. I just wanted to add that just kind of happened.
Then who's that behind you? No, I'm kidding. No. So
it's just my doppelganger.
Yeah, right. I see it. Weird that she looks so much like you. How does that work? So then the reception for Black Lake was pretty phenomenal and well deserved because like I'm a cinephile and I was blown away by it when I saw it. If there was, I'm gonna try to get people to see at least the trailer for it. But if there was a way you can entice people who are not familiar with your work or the subject of Black Lake, what would you want to say to them to get them to take a moment to watch this?
I think what I would say is if you're after a unique, intimate, sensual, terrifying experience, Black Lake is for you. I like to kind of sell it as an experience more than a movie, more than just a movie. It's almost like a living, breathing piece of art where you just kind of become immersed. So, yeah.
Sensual and terrifying, I think, is a great way to describe it. Absolutely. There's also seems to be a sort of meta awareness too, because I mean, not only did you direct it, but you also starred in it, and your character in the film was an artist and a visual artist, so it's like very, very self-aware. So it's like when it starts to reach that culmination of the story at the end of the film, like that's you doing it. It's not like you're not really acting anymore so much as you're in that moment, and that was one of the best parts of it. Is like everything led up to that perfect crucial moment. Like
thank you so much.
Avenue of the storm came together. So now that that's done and it's still on circuit, still doing its thing, what's your next goals? What are you planning to do in the future with this?
So in 2015, I actually finished making my first feature film. It's called Maya, and I shot that entirely in Pakistan. So that was a film about jinn possession, which is demonic possession, and people still heavily believe in it, just like the Jurel in Black Lake. People still heavily believe in jinn in Pakistan. It's part of the religion, it's part of the culture. But at the time, it wasn't a very good political time, basically, for the film. I just didn't think people were interested in watching a movie about a young Muslim girl who becomes possessed. Lo and behold, when I kind of put it on the back bench, Under the Shadows came out, which came out from Iran, I think, and it was picked up by Netflix. Netflix got really big, things happened. And I remember watching Under the Shadows and I thought, that's my monster. But what Maya does is, it again, similar to how Black Lake is filmed, it explores it in a very intimate way through the life of a young girl. So what I'm doing is I learned a lot from Black Lake, and I've re-edited Maya. It's going to go through post-production again and get a fresh new grade, new sound palette, and I'm hoping to have that festival ready for next year.
Okay, good. I look forward to it. I hope a lot of people do. If it's anything like your last work, it's going to be great. I see a lot of forward momentum in what you do, so I think it's going to be.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's a very different film. It's very, I mean, the houses in Pakistan are big, like the houses in the States. But there's this feeling of suffocation in Maya, and I guess that comes from dare I say, the culture. You know, women in
Say that
Pakistan.
again.
So
The phone
there's
cut out.
somebody doesn't want me to speak.
Hmm.
So Maya has this kind of suffocating feeling to it, which I guess comes from the culture and the fact that the film is about women in Pakistan. So there's a lot to unpack there. So I'm really hoping to have that ready for early next year. And in the meantime, I'm actually scripting my third feature film. So yeah,
Cool. Good. Yeah, keep moving forward. I see nothing but good things for you.
thank you.
So let me start to wrap this up a little bit. I got like two more questions. Second question is, what prominent female figures inspired you and motivated you to do what you do, or to continue doing what you've been doing?
Um, I've had some very good teachers who never gave up on me. So I guess I'm here because of them. I never gave up. But at the end of Black Lake in the credits, you see a nice long list of people that inspired me. So there are, for example, there's a famous Bollywood actress, Sri Devi, who actually passed away when I was filming Black Lake. So she gets a little mention. Growing up, I often get asked, um, are there any kind of strong South Asian women in film? And I actually grew up with a lot of strong kind of female characters, not just Ripley, or like the bride from Kill Bill, but even when I was about 7 or 8, I grew up with a lot of strong female South Asian Bollywood actresses. And I really looked up to them. So that, and then, for example, I also thank Angelina Jolie, Lady Gaga, because these are people that have really, through their work, through their messages, have just really inspired me to just never give up. A lot of these people go beyond just the art form of music or film, and they're so involved in humanitarian causes, and that's something that's so important to me. And it's really, I love that. I love that I can do that now. I grew up being a huge fan of Lara Croft, so yeah, I kind of feel like I'm living my best Lara Croft life.
That's actually pretty good because, like, for a lot of people who are used to a video game history, like they really see her superficially as the way she was portrayed. But if you actually follow the evolution of her character, she's actually
Mm-hmm.
really in depth. Like, I've played a whole bunch of
Right?
them, up to even the recent ones where she's like just a teenager or a young adult, and it's yeah, the Lara Croft definitely has a lot more depth and character than a lot of people realize. Like, they just remember her from
Absolutely.
PlayStation One, but there's a lot more going on than people expect, and that game is actually
Absolutely. Yeah.
really scary. Like, I've been shocked and terrified a few times. Like, the tension in that game is pretty phenomenal. So I get where you're going with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, even with Black Lake, um, for example, the young girl Nasima, she's actually just a beggar girl. So I actually had to drive out very dangerously against my family's wishes to a necropolis. I found this girl that I had previously photographed. I put myself at danger, like at risk, just so I could do good by these people. I took water, clothing, all sorts of things for the people in this village, for their in return for their support making my film. So the scenes that are shot in Pakistan were done there. So just being able to do that, and that wasn't planned. It's just because other things happened, um, and I kind of lost my initial cast and crew where I had to make those decisions. So I suddenly felt like I was living that life of adventure, of actually helping through the film, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I think it translates pretty well onto the screen with that. The so then let me wrap this up with another final question. You had talked about being inspired by women in your life to move forward and to go forward with what you're doing. If you were to find yourself in the position where you can inspire other up and coming young female filmmakers, what would be the message for them? Or conversely, if another way of putting it, I guess, would be if you could send a message back to yourself when you were younger, when you really needed who you are now back then, what would you give to them and what would you say to them?
Gosh, so for me, like literally, it's the air that I breathe. Filmmaking is so important to me, and I think now more than ever, it's a tool for empowerment. So I think any woman who wants to get into film, whether you're kind of doing lights or acting or directing, if it's the one thing you think about, do it. Literally, you don't need anyone's permission. You don't need to feel like maybe I'll do this when I feel good enough. You're good enough now. If you've got that fire in you, you're ready to go. Like seriously, just wake up and just do it. Do it. Yeah, I've been reading a lot about the divine feminine. So I think I strongly encourage women to tap into that divine feminine, the divine creativity within them, and just let it flow.
That's good. That's really good. Let's have this giant platform here.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I did want to mention about specifically about Black Lake, I can't talk about Black Lake without talking about the case that it's actually based on, which is the Jyoti Singh case. So it's a case that really shocked everybody globally. It was about a young woman who was gang raped on a bus in Delhi. So that was a big kind of, I guess, inspiration in a way, but it was one of the things that really got me to just buckle up and just continue with Black Lake. No matter how many times things kept going bad, I really believed in the story, and I really wanted to highlight just violence against women, and empower women through the transformation and healing that I hope Black Lake offers people. So yeah.
Yeah, I've keeping track of international news. We see that is still an issue over there. So I really love the fact that you're bringing awareness to it, because it kind of seems like it's a portion of either that part of the world or part of that culture where it's just like it doesn't get enough focus, and things are
Exactly.
just yeah. So I'm
Well,
really
it's
glad it's
it's
coming
like
out.
even the monster in Black Lake, the drill. I mean, it's something people are still terrified about now. I've grown up hearing stories about her, but when I was researching Black Lake, the more I read about it, I actually realized this monster is a product of violence, and it was
Mhm.
such a refreshing take on it, and that's what I wanted to bring to cinema, because when I go to the cinema, I love watching everything, but more than anything, I want a new experience. I want to learn something new and see different places. And I really hope Black Lake brings that to people that are after those things.
I think so. I think it'll be good. It's very eye opening, and it also helps to create a more worldly view. Because I know after a while, especially during times of the pandemic, where you can get your blinders put on, and like you don't see
Absolutely.
much of what's going on around you anymore,
Yeah.
just because you're not leaving the house really. So I think maybe this will help that out. Like it'll just help. I don't know. I'll figure it out in post. So it's like, yeah, it's good. I think again, Black Lake, I think is the story is amazing. It's very emotional and very driven. I think the visuals were very lush and fantastic. Again,
Thank
like you
you.
said, it was very both sensual and terrifying at the same time. And one of my favorite things about it was shot in such a way it was very intimate, like
Thank you. Thank you.
with the close shots. I mean, the color itself also helped really push that sense of it, and like
Mm,
it was both the intimacy and the terror were getting cranked up at the same time as the film progressed. So it was like after the film was done, you kind of sit there in stunned silence and you start thinking about, what did I just go through? And I
yeah.
think it's one of those film projects that's very rare in the fact that it leaves its marks in you, like you got clawed or scratched or cut, and like you will have a
Mm,
scar left over afterwards. And I think as a filmmaker who's dedicated to their craft and the art of filmmaking, that's one of the things that we try to do, is try to leave that mark on our viewers and try to fundamentally
absolutely.
change something about the audience. And I wanted to congratulate you because I feel like you were very successful in doing that.
Thank you,
And
Jason. That really means a lot.
Yeah,
That really means a lot. It's funny because I'll have to email you about one of the deleted scenes.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So
sure. No, I love
because
behind
it
the
was
scenes
quite
stuff.
literally pause and leaving a mark. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay, cool. Yeah, I look forward to that, and I'm going to keep that to myself because I'm not sharing that one. That's my special treat. No,
absolutely.
as a filmmaker and a hobbyist, like I've always, you know when you get your Blu-ray and your DVD box set, like there's always that second disc, the supplemental disc. Like the supplemental disc was made for people like me, where it's like I want
Mhm.
to know everything that happened behind the scenes. Like give me everything. I want to know.
Absolutely.
Oh, so we are good to go, and I know you want to get back to enjoying the rest of your evening. So how about you get
All
well,
right.
sweetie?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
no, thank you. Like I said, it's as both a colleague and as a fan of your work, it was my pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you, Jason.
When the whole world just started spinning.